Mazor. I'm the CISO Information Security, Head of Information Security at Perimeter 81.
Excellent. And of course, together with us, and please say hello when I present you, Omer Yaron from Enzo Security.
Hi, everyone.
He's going to discuss, he's going to tell us about the Code OS, some risk and IDE. Hi, Uriel Kosaev.
Sorry.
And he's going, of course, to present us malware analysis, red team, and of course, antivirus bypass techniques. Yes, there is something like antivirus bypass. It can actually be done. And last but not least, Matan Lieber from Pentera.
Everyone.
So Matan is going to show us the good, the bad, not the movie in this case, but the good and bad and the compromisable aspect of Linux eBPF. Are you ready? Have your coffee, take a long sip, and let's jump in. Omer,
Yes,
the
so
stage is yours.
okay. Hi, everyone. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the code operating system, or IDE, and the developer's attack surface. So first off, let me it's not about me, the presentation, but just in a few words. I'm the head of research at Enzo Security. Our main thing we do is application security for application teams. We try to create a full picture of application posture management. So on the agenda, I think some of these doesn't look good, but nonetheless. Okay, so first off, I'll try to explain what is an IDE, what is the developers and supply chain attacks, what is the research that we did of plugins for IDEs or extensions, and the findings that we like, what is the research, and then the findings and my takeaways. So first off, what is an IDE, or integrated development environment? So there is a Wikipedia terminology to say that it's basically the software in which we write software. So any developer today, nobody would write a text file and then send it over to someone else. He'll need to debug, he'll need to run the code on his machine to test it, and so on. So we all use elaborate tools to do that. They are called IDE, and again, it's not very structured. It even says so in the Wikipedia article. It's not very straightforward. Some people consider only if it has a debugger as an IDE, but some script languages don't really have debugging, and so on. So, but basically we understand what it is. So I've put down the names which we did a research also of the two main, I think, products out there. First is Microsoft's VS Code, which is an open source based on basically V8 Node, and JetBrains IntelliJ IDE. IntelliJ is just one. JetBrains does a lot of stuff. They do it's not open source, but it's built on Java, so it's got a great adoption by Java or Scala developers, and basically people use them a lot. But if I'll go online and look for IDE list on Google, so there's a ton of IDEs. So I won't mention all of them, but most of the things here are relevant to all. And now I'm going to talk briefly about the developers and generally of supply chain attacks in recent time. So generally, supply chain in our industry is on the rise. A lot of people are dealing with it, and a lot of people are companies are trying to deal with this issue. Why? Because their velocity is very important in agile development, which is booming around the world. You can't be really a productive development company without having agile and a lot of velocity over code. And what that basically means is a lot of dependencies and using other people's code. Okay, so if I'll go and put on a Google trend line of the word SBOM, which stands for Software Bill of Material, which is usually the way that we as in application security deal with understanding the software that builds our own software. What are the components that are being used to build our own software? So I'll put a few incidents on this trend line that we see is on the rise. So just quickly, I'll say that ESLint scope is NPM. ESLint is a very popular linting package on NPM, on the public NPM.js for Node. And it is, I think at the time was about 6 million weekly downloads, so very adopted, and then the incident in July 2018 was that ESLint scope, which is a dependency of ESLint, was compromised and was being added in a malicious code, which exfiltrated basically the NPM token of that environment. And I remember I was there at the time. I was working at Wix, and we had a very tough time to understand, like, how are we supposed to react to that? What do we know in CI? When was building happened during the time that this was a malicious package was available? Were there builds? Were we compromised? And what about developer station and so on? So it opened like a really big door for me to start and think about this issue. And then a dependency confusion in 2021, not going into details, but it's a very interesting article which showed that many public repositories of dependency has a fallback mechanism which allowed other, like, anonymous users to basically inject their code in CI processes, which means their code running in CI and probably production. And on May 2021, Biden's executive order, which specifically states some fields of industries should like required to have an SBOM or comprise an SBOM, and Log4Shell or Log4j vulnerability last year and just a year back that really also shifted a lot of people to have a quick way of knowing what they have and what's not, and all of that. The thing that triggered for me was very interesting for me was seeing how developers are being basically a big target and a good one to abuse. Why? Because once you go to, if I'll talk about an IDE, obviously it's a process that runs with access to all of the current user files. It has like no restriction if you talk about antivirus detection. So what antivirus would detect. I can do in my IDE whatever I want, run any code I want, and it's fair bet that it's safe, or it's supposed to be safe. And also, when we think about sandboxing, there is no such thing. When we use them from front end or from some environments or even NPM, you can do CI build, which is and without scripts running and all those like sandbox operation. But when we talk about an IDE or developer workstation, that's what he do. He updates code, he changes code, he pushes it to CI and to production, and so that's like what he's supposed to do. So this is a very good target for attackers. Okay, so basically the research of IDE extension and plugins began when we started to talk about it internally in our own company, and started to ask developers what do they think about extension and plugins and how safe are they. And we found out that unlike let's say NPM, again, I use NPM all the time, but it's same for PyPy and all those repositories. And what was interesting is that they thought they had a lot of expectations from the development environment of the IDE, let's say Microsoft in the case of VS Code, to filter out malicious extensions or to do work in that area. And this is a misconception, and this is what started the research. And so we started and asked her, how can we use the same supply chain techniques used for malicious packages and try and do the same things for IDE plugins. So a few of those things is, so first question, can anonymous user even publish not packages, but plugins like they do? Like we know that on NPM, anyone can publish a package. Most developers know that because they also probably published something. And so it's like a lot of people thought, no one can anonymously, internally, when we talk to developers, no one can just publish a plugins. It is by some authority and so on. So that's a question. I'll answer it quickly in the next slides. And our name squatting or name changing or any attack that is based on name of the package or in this case plugin is possible. Meaning, can I just select whichever name I want for my extension or plugin? Starjacking. Starjacking is a technique where it's very common in let's say NPM or PyPy that you upload a package code, but you also give the GitHub or whatever Git repository link, and then on the page of the package, it states a lot of information from there. For instance, I don't know, 200 stars, and it got on GitHub, and it got 20,000 commits, and it got I don't know, 20 pull requests. So all of that data creates a lot of validity in the eyes of the user. So that's a technique that I wanted to see if I can use it when creating a plugin. Also, can I manipulate the download counter and any indication of validity? So again, what can I do in terms of making a developer want to install my malicious package? Okay, so so the findings, I'm just gonna go at it because we don't have a lot of time. So first off, okay, I think So first off, VS Code. So how easy to create an extension? Super easy. You have to do like 3 lines of code, a bit more, but basically there's a page called Get Started, your first extension. You have a boilerplate for generating a VS Code extension, and then from there it's pretty easy. And also you have an NPM node package, VSCE, so Visual Studio Code Extensions, which allows you to easily publish, unpublish, update extensions. So it couldn't be easier. A part of it is to have a Azure DevOps account. Again, free, takes 2 minutes. You need a pulse and an email, and then you get an account, and then you just take off that an API key and use it to authenticate over the VSE, and that's what it takes. So this is an example of how I published a package, not a package, a publisher, what it's called. It's like an organization, kind of, for, I called it IntelliJ. I thought it would be fun to have a IntelliJ like organization in Microsoft's VS Code. So I created it, took me 2 seconds and it was there. And the next thing I wanted to do was to publish my educational extension. And if you can see on the screen, so basically I published it, and then I could go to the to my management and can see I could see that the package was, sorry, I'm going back, was online. So this is what it took to just get a package online with this name. But again, right now it would look very dodgy. It would look, if you can see the on the right down corner there, this is how it looks inside the VS Code IDE. So the first package, educational for testing purposes, IntelliJ, 0 downloads, right, and no stars. Okay, so this is like the starting point. And from there, I wanted to start. So first of all, I wanted to add a review and some stars. So I reviewed myself, 5 star, amazing extension, submit. And you would think that it's you know, that when you see like this 5 star, if you see Android Studio, you see 5 stars, you'd think, okay, maybe there's like at least 100 people to start it, and so it would get, but no, all you need is 1. So 1, so you can review yourself and get the 5 star mark to allow, you know, people to think it's more trustworthy. And then next would be to add a repository. So like I said, starjacking is a way for you to add credibility by just leeching off another repository. So I just went to github.com, go on the trending page, saw something that has a lot of you know, traffic there, and I just put that under repository in the package JSON of my extension, and that's all I needed. And I put on another version. And if you look, I can't really zoom in, but if you look, this is the page of my my extension, education, IntelliJ, 5 stars. Here it's also say in parentheses how many reviewers, but in the short inside the IDE it doesn't show it. And over to the right, you can see the project details. So all of this data, 48 open issues and 30 pull requests, and less commits 2 years ago, and project details and all of that. So basically I can just, it has nothing to do with the real data of my extension, but it helps to build a lot of credibility. Someone who clicks on it goes to that very well-maintained project and says, okay, looks like it's legit, I'll go on. Okay, so this is a quick way to add credibility. And then another interesting and very much, again, people thought it means a lot when you get these, the blue mark saying that this publisher is verified. So basically, what does it mean to be a verified publisher? So all it means is that you own a domain. This is what it means. It means you own a domain. What domain, under which the display name, it's completely non-relevant, which means basically that any extension with this blue you know, V sign doesn't mean much. Why? It is, how do you get it? You just need to add a TXT record to prove that you own the domain, but any relations between the domain and the name and the display name, which can be changed at any time. So basically what I'm saying is that if you want to, you know, make something look legit, you can just add some legit extension, get verified. They do audit it, so they audit it, and then you get it, and then it's yours forever. Okay, you can start and publish a lot of other dependencies whatever name, whatever display name, and you still own that mark, which shows here on the right side as it is in the IDE. And basically,
Omer, sorry
Yeah.
to disturb, but it's basically as similar as the marking on Twitter.
yeah,
Pay
well,
$8
now
now,
it is, but
you
they
can
got-
basically
they
call
got
yourself
that
John.
on it. Right,
I don't know,
right.
man.
But you know, you say it as a semi joke, but it's really true when we talk about you know, engineering, you know, human engineering and what goes with it, it means a lot. So a lot of people automatically thinks, okay, it's fine, it's okay, it's Microsoft approved it, but it's really not. Okay, so this is how it goes. You just go and create if you own the DNS, you can add a text record by that they tell you, you verify, and then they tell you it's up to 5 business days until the team verifies it. But generally, you know, it's pretty easy if you put on, you know, whatever code you want and you own the domain, no problem. So okay, so the last thing that I had add on my list was to add credibility by testing the counter. So when I wanted to, oh, it doesn't show here. Never mind. Okay, so what I wanted to do is basically show as if a lot of people downloaded this package, and you can't see because I'm sorry, but the presentation it overlaps somehow. But the other picture, which is not showing. So there is another. So this was a trouble. Okay, this wasn't easy for me because they do a lot. First of all, there's a few different places and a few different counters for VS Code. For instance, if you see here on your screen, this is from the backend, how it looks like for the maintainer. So there are installs from VS Code and downloads from Marketplace and page views. So you can see the funnel, which is a legitimate funnel, would look like this. Everyone go through a page view of your of the extension, and then out of 7, 2 people actually installed it. So that's the funnel. But what I noticed is that the download for Marketplace, while installed from VS Code, there's a few different checks that are being performed, which makes it harder to perform a replay attack and trying to up those numbers. But the download for Marketplace, which I didn't notice before, actually opened up another option. But so when I was trying to abuse that one, I was able to get like a 1000% acquisition, right? So 35% or 35 people page views, 30 out of 35 page views, I got 337 acquisitions or installations. And that's just by going through the Marketplace and seeing that there's a different API and a different counter for installations over there. And so, and it was, I was able to do a replay attack and just up those numbers as much as I want. If I remember right, okay, so this is, basically, if you can see, this is just the from verb, the repeater request and response, and then I send that to intruder with no payload and got, you know, how many basically downloads as I wanted. So this is it for VS Code. So basically, I was able to do you know, if you take it another step, I think you can find it that it's quite easy to create a malicious package in a way that is very I don't know, like feeling as trustworthy as possible. Okay, so basically I won't go everything in IntelliJ because it's just more of the same. But I came into this and I thought, okay, IntelliJ, it's a proprietary company. It's a premium product. It's not an open source. Maybe they'll do things differently. And I didn't check everything like counter and all of those, but basically you can just as easily create a plugin template. It's a bit harder because it's Java based and because it's using Gradle, which is like Maven, to create all of these hierarchy inside of the project. But still, anyone with some knowledge can easily create and publish a package. There is also a very similar guide step by step, and also there's a few features that could help or assist malicious activity, like for instance custom pages. So IntelliJ allows you to put on custom pages as part of your, so it's a very I think it's problematic because let's say in VS Code you're allowed to add README files, so Markdown. But in what IntelliJ said, okay, that's not enough, that's not good enough, and they released this just a few months ago, and they said we allow you to add now custom pages, which is complete HTML. So again, think of it, complete HTML in the marketplace and in your IDE. So it also, it opens up any creativity for social engineering. So I think that's might be interesting to check further. Also, okay. Also, what more in IntelliJ? Another thing that IntelliJ allows you to do is it allows you to set in your Gradle properties of the project, allow to list. You see the platform plugins. So come a separated list of dependencies to bundle in the IDE plugin. So this means that it's fairly, I think it's a fairly easy way, like dev dependencies in NPM. It's a fairly easy way to hide yourself inside a relatively valid plugin. You create some plugin that does something, and one of its dependencies performs some malicious activity. I think it's as they bundle together. They're if you know how POM XML looks like, it's not very easy to identify all of those dependencies. So that's, I thought, was also interesting. And also the plugin name, again, just like in VS Code, you can select whatever plugin name, whatever plugin group, which goes to com.github.username.repo generally by the template, but you can do whatever you want. So again, star checking and all of that as you want. Okay, so it's not immune to it. Yeah, so you've gone incognito. So I think I'll wrap it up with my takeaways, and then I'll give you some time for questions. So first off, IDEs are a potential threat. We don't always think of them as such, and I didn't go through other except plugins and add-ons or extensions. There are also other potential threats, but we leave it to another talk. I don't think I'll have time for that. But the developers' awareness to this threat and any tool to assess an extension security is very much lacking. We at the end of the talk, and when I shared these findings with some developers, then they asked us, so what, how should we check? And I don't have a clear answer, not yet. We need to, we just, it was just research that we started, and we wanted to see how easy it was. So I think there's a lot to do in that aspect, a lot of movement has been to dependencies, and I think that the next kind of evolution would be to put your eyes on extensions for IDEs. And also, you know, I'm not super smart or very have special capabilities that hackers in the world don't have. So I suspect, you know, to follow up again, I wrote it downstairs with hunting for malicious extension. I think of a few ways, you know, just looking for differences between the actual code of the plugin versus the reported repo would be interesting, just to flag, you know, things that might be malicious. And next, the takeaway. So code repositories hold crucial security relevant data. You know, I didn't even said it, but if you have access to the IDE, you have access to code, you have access to, usually when developers work in their IDE, they use like .env files or .vs code for all of those you know, secrets that we use. So they're very up in the open and available for the IDE and the developer. And of course, that's the gateway through to production. So that's basically it. If you want to ask me questions.
Omer, there are a couple of questions that I received. Thanks for that. First of all, thank you very much, Omer. It was really, really educative. In the last couple of years, someone asked me, in the last couple of years, basically, we saw Facebook, Twitter, and others are being blamed for fake news. So sometimes the platform is being blamed, or, you know, pointing fingers at the platforms. The question is, why don't GitHub, or why don't we basically going to blame GitHub and, you know, GitHub and others, other platforms like those, for, you know, making sure that the credibility of the users promoting to the community are actually legit.
Yeah, I think
that may, by the way, maybe that's the solution or something. Do you think that will actually solve it even?
Yeah, so I think, you know, from my point of view, what history has told us is that if we won't, you know, ask for something, it won't happen. Like, people won't just take it, you know, that won't take responsibility unless they need to. And I think that this is actually what should happen. This is what we expect of those kind of levels of, you know, I'm not talking here about something that is in the dark. It's like leading the industry. Those products, they lead the industry. We need to have confidence in them, and that's actually a big selling point for them. And I'm going back, all of those malicious packages, it's not, you know, it's not a problem for security personnel. It's a problem for NPM to investigate, to invest more in their efforts for security. And they want people to know that NPM is secure, and that's what they do now. And they do cooperate with Google, and Google have their new, I can't remember the name, but they started a new like dependency checker. And you know, all of those initiatives, they're not just happening. They're happening because people put pressure on those companies. And I think that's exactly what should happen. I think those are the gatekeepers that should regulate it. And we are the one that should ask them. We, the security community, should point and say, look, like what happened in dependency confusion, look, there is a potential risk. And Google is, for instance, Google Project Zero is a good project that they're doing, and we're saying we're not waiting, we're pointing at things that are problematic to make it a safer platform, because it's their, you know, interest to make the internet safer, so more people would use it and more people would use Google, and so on. So that's basically what I think.
Excellent. So 2 more questions. Let's go to them very, very quickly. So one of them is, out of the attack type that you mentioned before, what is the most or are most common What is the most favorite by you? I mean, view?
I think, when we go to that world of social engineering, I think that everything is coupled together. It's always the way to use to incorporate those things to create some image that is not reality. So if just yesterday I mentioned Checkmarks, who bought acquired an Israeli company last year, Israeli company, startup, Dustico, which is now the supply chain, like the supply chain, I don't know, sector or whatever of Checkmarks.
Modular, yeah.
And yesterday they sent out a campaign, like a research about a campaign that uses TikTok to inspire developers into downloading malicious code. Why? Because there's like you can read it. It's a very interesting. I won't get into the details, but this makes me very interested to see how people can manipulate other people, and especially developers, to do the malicious part for them.
By the way, before moving on to the last question, so first of all, if you can share that one on the chat, and everyone would be probably glad to see that example, which sounds pretty cool. I'm sure half of the participants probably know it, but for those who may miss it, that would be really cool. Fun, and excellent. And the last question that I have is, so basically, and that's a really like 2-3 words answer. So production is the most sacred one. Development is, obviously, we know as an environment, is much more at risk. Do you think that there is some kind of impact on the IDE type of risk that you mentioned before, because it's a development environment, because it's something that is much more easy or accessible?
Right. So,
and is there a way to solve it besides the thing that you mentioned?
Right. So I think that with all the shift left, right, that's happening, and the velocity that we're trying to get in development, the environments, they keep getting closer. Like, there are obviously a lot of, in our industry also, a lot of companies that have very high rigid, I don't know, guidelines and strategies to segregate networks and so on. But in the real world of most startup companies or medium and large companies that are going very fast and try to compete with other developers to be the first to release a feature, those environments are becoming more and more close. And I can give you a few examples of companies that I went to, and they're very much more proud that they don't have that they don't have like integration or that they ship straight to production. Why? Because they do. That's part of TDD's test-driven development, which saying I'll do the tests end to end or whatever unit test I want, and then I know it's good to production. So obviously that this holds a lot of effect on security, and for that we need to make sure that we have all the controls and all the measures, and be more, I'll say, be more ready for incident response. Because tomorrow someone might say, this package was vulnerable. We need to know that we can go look for our logs, know where to look, how. People were very, very, I know because I work with customers that came to us and said, I don't know, there's log4j. I don't know if I have it or not. I don't know if it was built during the last 24 hours or not. It's very hard to, in this rapid world of application, to be ready for that. So I think that's also a larger part of our domain now in application security.
Great answer. So thank you very, very much, Omer, Yaron, again for Menso Security. Sounds like that research is like at the tip of the iceberg. There is lots to research and maybe also lots to fix that